Uh, I guess we're recording now. Yes, we are. Steve Rachmad. We
Hi,
meet
Ali.
again. We meet again
Yeah.
virtually. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. Not
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
How are
Happy with
things?
my studio.
Sorry.
Studio is getting me through all the shit. So
It's a good thing we creatives we have something,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
to
Yeah,
divert our attention to.
yeah, yeah.
Otherwise we'd go crazy. I mean, I have a lot of friends who their job, just like our job, is everything. But um, you know, not touring, we can hibernate in the studio and make
Yeah,
music.
yeah, yeah.
But
I'm
a
so
lot of
grateful that we have that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know
totally,
where I would be without it.
yeah,
But
yeah. But a
okay.
lot of my other friends don't have any of that, so they're just kind of in a holding pattern, waiting, and they don't have a lot of other hobbies or
Yeah.
passions outside of what they do. So it's a good thing. You know, we have music.
Yeah.
And yeah, today we're speaking. We tried to do this once before on Instagram. It
Yeah.
didn't
It
work
totally
out so
failed.
well. Yeah,
I
but
couldn't
I think
connect
this.
somehow. I could see you guys
Yeah,
and I could only text and that's it.
yeah. But now we're gonna do it this way, and it's more relaxed. And I see you're in your studio, which is
Yeah.
great to see. So specifically today, we're talking about because Kazuya Nagaya project that you were a part
Yeah.
of. Um, I guess a good way to start is, like, have you ever made, as Sterak or Steve Rachmad, any ambient music in the past?
Not specifically. Maybe that I had a ambient kind of track on a Starrock album, but not just specifically to be naming it ambient. To be honest, no.
Yeah, it's because I was trying to find something and I couldn't find anything. I was wondering
Yeah,
if
there,
you'd
there was one on Music Man 100 actually.
Mhm.
It was called A Team for a Fairy Tale, but I think it has a wrong title. It's called Their Lost, blah blah blah, something.
Yeah,
And it was actually not really a track. I did it with the Nordlied when I just bought it, and I connected it, and I made a riff with the Atari. I was working with Atari still, and I
yeah,
was just trying out the filters and just to see what it did. And I had the DAT machine on recording, so
yeah.
then it became an ambient track actually.
Yeah, because yeah, for me, I mean, you not having dabbled in that genre before, for me, every time I listened to your music, I sensed there was like an atmospheric or ambient kind of sensibility
Yeah.
uh, in a lot of the material. Do you recall your earliest memory of getting into like ambient music? Like for me, it was like Klaus Schultze, Tangerine Dream, Brian Eno, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Ashra, who Manuel Gotching was a part of.
yeah.
What was your earliest, if you can
For me,
recall?
I
Like,
think it was for sure Brian Eno.
mm,
And much later, I learned about the other guys you're just mentioning. I mean, I remember when I had when I played my astronauts track to a guy in the shop where I buy my equipment. He
mm,
said, "Oh, it reminds me of Klaus Schulze," and I never heard of the guy before. So I
yeah,
went to the second-hand record store to look for some records, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." And then I started following Klaus Schulze. And even Tangerine Dream, I found out, let's say 10 years ago. A friend of mine had some CDs of them. And yeah, I was really stunned by them because I could hear Drexia in it. I could hear Detroit techno in it.
yeah,
Even trance stuff. They were very influenceable, I think, for the dance. And I didn't even know about them before. But when
yeah,
I heard that stuff, I could see so many people that were influenced by them already by listening to a few tracks. And I was like,
yeah,
wow. Even like what was the trance called? Not the deep trance, but then you had the lighter version in between. What was it called? It was very popular. Sasha and stuff were doing that.
Progressive House,
Progressive, yeah.
Progressive House.
There
Yeah,
was
yeah. There
one
was a
track
lot
that
of
they had in there, and I was like, wow, this is totally progressive house. And
yeah,
they
and I
did it in the
remember
70s and the 80s already. So, yeah.
totally, and I remember like it was a big thing in Ibiza back in those days, like Cafe Del Mar, the whole sunset thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Creating, a certain atmosphere using ambience, down
yeah.
tempo music.
Yeah.
Um, you
I
and I
like the
both
series.
meant,
I have a
yeah.
few of those.
Go ahead.
I mean, I like the Café Del Mar series. I have a few of them. Nice
Yeah,
chill out stuff.
it was great. They found certain key songs that I was into and put them all
Mm,
together kind of on this compilation. So it did represent some of the best kind of ambient music um,
yeah,
out there. You and I both mentioned Brian Eno, who is like, I think
yeah,
for a lot of people, like the most well known. I
yeah,
have a
yeah,
quote here from Brian Eno. He was famously quoted as saying, ambient music must be able to accommodate many levels of listening attention without enforcing one in particular. It must be as ignorable as it is interesting. Um, and how do you like? Do you agree with that? Do you view ambient music as this
So it sounds like a
non?
background thing how he
Yeah,
describes
like
it.
I think what he was trying to say is that it's not music that's really like upfront and in your face.
Yeah,
It's 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 still audible, like you can
yeah,
still hear it, and it's still interesting because your brain is trying to. I think that's what happens to me sometimes when even the TV is down. Like I listen more intently. I try to hear, you know, whatever I can in that small signal, that audio
yeah.
signal that's coming through, whatever. And I think that's what he was trying to maybe convey, is that like it can still be like musical and interesting, but it doesn't have to be like, in your face. Like, do you agree with
Yeah.
that? Like,
It depends on the mood, I think, because sometimes there's so many sorts of ambient or what people call ambient nowadays, and some of them do have a really nice building peak time with some sort of sound or synth, which I actually also like. I mean, do you know a guy called Robert Fripp?
yeah, Fripp
I
worked a
mean,
lot with he was a guitar player.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have
Yeah,
a CD of his in live in Argentina, and that's amazing. I mean, it builds up. Probably he does it with a guitar, but on a guitar synthesizer, so you don't really hear a guitar in it, and it starts. Let's say like the bolero, it starts really at low volume, and then
yeah,
slowly you hear a tape loop coming in, and then it builds up till the end. It gets more intense all the time, and it's like whoa. At some
yeah.
point, it's like whoa. Yeah, I was like, it's amazing. If you smoke a joint or something and sit back and just
Yeah.
let it happen, that it's I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I loved I think Manuel Gotching, who did the famous E2 E4
Yeah,
track,
yeah,
which
yeah.
which we all know. I think he was also a guitar player. He was in Ashra Temple. I think they were
Okay.
called Ashra or Ashra Temple. And he worked a lot with, like, even before like Edge from U2. You know
Yeah,
how Edge creates these, it's almost like arpeggiated synth,
yeah, 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 yeah.
it sounds like arpeggiated synth patterns using a guitar and reverb and delay and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
layering all
But
that.
in the musical day, I actually thought it
Yeah.
was an arpeggio, and then later to find
Yeah.
out it was a guitar riff.
Yeah. I I can't think of any interviews I've seen with him describing, and he was in that documentary film, I think it was called It Might Get Loud, where they kind of featured him, Jimmy Page, and Jack White from the White Stripes. But I don't think he really talked about that being an influence on his style of guitar playing. But I
Yeah,
I hear a direct influence from
yeah, yeah,
what people like Manuel Gotching and maybe Robert Fripp was doing in trying to
yeah,
create like kind of an ambient hypnotism
yeah, yeah.
through the subtle, kind of
Yeah, and the rest
rhythm.
is all done by the tape loop that's constantly
Yeah.
feedbacking. Yeah, it's pretty cleverly done how they do this.
Yeah. So for you, do you use, like, do you listen to a lot of ambient music at home? Do you use it as like a tool? Like, if you're stressed out, like, you put it on to relax. Like, if you're in the studio a lot making like beat driven music, is it a reset for you, or are you like just a big fan, and you
No,
put some.
I can listen to it always, actually. I never listen to it in the studio. usually in the living room when I'm chilling out or something, and sitting down and yeah, have a joint or whatever.
Yeah, the
I don't.
joint is an important. Yeah,
It's a good moment when you have this music. It's a good moment to sit back and relax sometimes.
yeah.
And lately, I've been into a really nice playlist on Spotify called "Not Quite Classical." Joe Multup tipped it to me, and it's really beautiful stuff in there. It's sort of quiet. It's sort of modern ambient, but
Yeah,
classical orientated, but not really classical. I mean, it's like modern stuff. A lot of
yeah.
piano, strings, and combination with synths and stuff. A good mixture, and it has 80 tracks or something, so you can just play it
Oh wow.
endlessly.
You'll have
It's
to
beautiful stuff. In,
you'll have to send me that link.
I will. I will. It's a really beautiful list.
Do you like? Are there any like? Do you have any favorite ambient producers? Like for me, one of I mean, obviously, a lot of the classic artists are there, but for me, the one album that I remember I couldn't get tired of listening, and to this day it stands up, is Global Communications
Oh, never
album.
heard that one.
Um, I'm gonna send you
Hmm.
that. Yeah, I think it's called 7614, and all the song titles are just that's the length of the album, and
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
title of the album, and all the song titles only have as their names the length of the song, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
most beautiful pieces of music that I've
Okay.
ever heard, and it actually turned me on to. I mean, I met those guys like in the '90s. It's Tom Middleton and Mark Pritchard.
Yeah,
Mark does
yeah.
a lot of stuff for Warp, um, but you know they were also Jedi Knights, and they had all these other
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have some
side
Jet
projects. Yeah,
stuff. Okay.
but yeah, I remember that album for me was like a defining moment in my life. You know, where I saw like the pure brilliance of beatless
Yeah, yeah.
music. Um, were you ever into like
Losing the connection.
soundtracks? How's the connection? Is it better?
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
better know. Just lost you for a sec.
No worries. Were you ever like, I'm also thinking about soundtracks, like movie soundtracks. I know Tangerine Dream had done a score for the movie Legend, which was phenomenal. If you get a chance to check that out.
No, no.
Um, Another one that comes to mind is like the most famous one probably is Vangelis, who did the Blade
Yeah,
Runner, the
yeah,
original Blade Runner score,
yeah. Actually,
which
never really listened to that one in
yeah,
one take. I mean, I know the snippets from the movies and here and there, but I never really heard
no,
the whole score. So
it's
I know that a
incredible.
lot of people are so enthusiastic about it, and I can't share it because I haven't heard it. Yeah, yeah. So,
Well, I'm gonna send you that link as well afterwards.
okay.
I actually bought the album, and the vinyl has all these pieces of music that weren't included in the final film. And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way the album plays is really, really beautiful. Like
yeah, yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
you put on a soundtrack album and it's like, it feels like you should be watching the movie with it.
yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah,
this soundtrack is so pretty and beautiful and so seamless, the way it goes
yeah,
from
yeah,
every song into side two, that you could actually listen to it as just a standalone
yeah, yeah.
um, album.
That's
Um,
interesting because I've been looking into film scoring stuff since the last year because there was no gigs and stuff.
yeah,
So I've been sort of teaching myself and watching videos on YouTube to see how they do it, but really the classical way, like with violins and horns and flutes and stuff.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, there there's just so many artists. Like there seems to be a massive resurgence of ambient music, like also with how popular like people like the neoclassical producers like Max Richter and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nils Fromm and stuff have
Oh,
become
these guys are also in this playlist that
yeah,
I'm mentioning the stuff. Yeah,
yeah. And then there's obvious sometimes you get like a techno single and it's got one ambient song on it, but that ambient song tends to be more it tends to be darker in mood,
yeah,
and short and used as like a tool, sometimes very,
yeah.
you know, there's a genre, like a subgenre of ambient music called drone. Are you into like drone? And is that something you have ever used in your DJ sets, like to create an atmosphere or to reset an atmosphere and begin like your set with or end your set with?
I have to say, I think over my whole thing, I barely use drones, and lately I've been looking into it also for ambient stuff to see what I can do, because it's a different approach as well with what you can play and what chords you can put. But I'm lately I'm been trying a bit more with working with droney sounds actually.
Mm.
It's,
Yeah.
there's something interesting because I always like this sort of a trance in music, and that's always why my music is so minimal in some ways, because usually then I have more instruments,
Mm.
and the moment that I add the instruments, then for myself I'm getting taken away out of a certain trance that I leave the sound out of it.
Yeah.
Usually I have this thing
And when you
because I'm
produce, do
looking for
you
a certain
certain, yeah,
trance.
hypnotism.
Yeah, yeah.
um when you produce, do you always begin with like the beat and the bass, or sometimes you're fiddling on a keyboard or going through different
For me,
patches or
it could be
whatever?
anything. I have
Could be any.
no certain rule. It could be indeed a melody in my head that I have to put down, or fiddling
Yeah,
around, or even I don't know, with a step sequencer, adding notes, doing stuff.
yeah,
I don't have a. I mean, if I open Ableton, I do have a drum template with already a kick drum, a clap, and some hats. But
yeah,
I don't have to do that every time, because that gets
yeah,
annoying also if you have to do that every time.
yeah,
But that's it. For the rest, I just go with the flow.
yeah. And had you kind of pivoting over to Kazuya's music, had you heard of Kazuya
No, no. When you
before?
send it
No.
to me, I was really stunned because I never heard of him before. I mean, I looked him up. I saw that Richie released stuff of his as
Yeah,
well, which I actually completely missed. But yeah, I love that stuff. I mean, it was really I
yeah.
listened
Rich
so many times. This album.
Rich
I couldn't even
actually.
choose a track. I would have done
Yeah.
the whole track, beatless or whatever. It was yeah, it was really amazing album. Very
Yeah,
loved.
I mean, in your quotes, you said it's such a piece of beauty and art that you had a hard time
Yeah,
choosing.
yeah,
I
but
remember
just
reading,
put it through. So
choosing a
it's like,
track.
oh, I love this one. Oh, I love this one. It was like, oh.
Yeah, it's funny because you were the first person for some reason, and this conversation is interesting because you haven't made a lot of ambient music, but for some reason, you were the first person I thought of,
No, funny.
and I sent the album to.
Yeah,
um, you know, for this whole idea that I had with it. Um, and I was like, you kind of set the tone for the everything else that happened, like a really positive tone, because like I wasn't sure how you would react to it, but you were like really enthusiastic when you
oh
came
yeah, still.
back. Yeah,
I love that kind
um,
of stuff.
yeah, like and I remember like you sent me a rough sketch of Heathen very
Yeah, yeah,
quickly. I think within days of
yeah, yeah.
getting the
I
album.
was working in my head the whole time. That thing. I think I even took it from a like a file you sent, maybe even. Yeah, yeah. I took it from the. I made it over the track, I think.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
dragged it in Ableton and just
yeah,
did
you
a
did
quick
something
sketch.
really it's you did something really quick. I remember you telling me I did this really quickly because I was so inspired. And then I was like, this is an amazing, perfect direction. It's exactly how I envisioned you
Mhm.
tackling it. Sorry, there's a plane going by. And then you know I think you went back. You were like you had a hard time choosing because there were other tracks that you
Yeah, yeah,
wanted to
because
kind
I
of
still had the
tackle.
other one, but I couldn't get the right mix down for that one. I did few mix downs. It
Yeah,
was a faster one, a more
yeah,
techno one, and I still want to offer it to you when I have the time to really
yeah.
nail the
First time.
mix, because
Yeah,
I played it out a few times on a festival and it sounded pretty cool, but there were some
yeah,
things that I wasn't happy about. So I had, yeah, and yeah, since I do hardware mixes, so I had to do the whole mix again, and
Yeah.
with so many sounds, because I had all the sounds separately on stereo channels. So the whole mixer of 32 channels was
Wow.
taken. So then if you don't pay attention to small detail, then you
You get
forget.
lost.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's probably what happened.
Yeah, that was
And
I think that was the Sterak mix. So you
yeah,
did
yeah,
a
yeah,
Steve Rachmad and a
yeah, yeah.
Sterak, and
Because the other one
yeah,
was more how the track was, but I just extended it and wanted to put it really in your face if you're on the dance
yeah,
floor with the bells and the strings. So everything I mixed it quite loud, actually. Maybe slightly too, but the mastering did a great job, I have to say.
yeah,
Really amazing mastering.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and at some point, whenever you want to finish it, we can always do like a special one-sided vinyl,
Uh,
colored vinyl release in the
uh,
future. So do you think, having worked on this project, do you think, like you mentioned, you know, to me, that you're going to maybe look into doing some scoring, some film scoring and things like that?
yeah,
Do you
yeah, yeah.
think we'll see a? Have you been inspired during, the past year to make more listening music, more like ambient music?
I have to say, it's always in my head, but because of the traveling, there's barely any time. And last year, I was asked by a reporter, Ian Urbina. He was a journalist for the New York Times, and he was writing a book. He wrote a book called The Outlaw Ocean, and he approached. Actually, the book was about everything bad on sea that happens, from sea slavery, smuggling of people, smuggling of weapons, illegal oil drilling, and so forth. And so he went on these boats, all these boats. He saw all the seas and all the bad stuff. He wrote a book, and he sent the book to a few artists, and he said, "Would you do some music for it as an experiment?"
Yeah,
So not something you had laying around, but really read a paragraph and write music for it. And
yeah,
actually, that sort of inspired me, because the book was so serious, and the subject was so serious. So it had to be something, yeah, sensitive, the music.
yeah,
And when in the process of doing that, I discovered some really nice string bundles. And I mean, the best string thing I have is in my JV 1080, or maybe an Ableton bundle from maybe 10 years ago or longer. So I missed the whole sampling part. And then
yeah,
I came across a sampling bundle that sounded so real. Then I was like, wow, that really inspired me. When I heard this, I was really blown away with what you can do with orchestras nowadays, that it sounds real. And I realized that now, that every series on TV and almost all the movies, they're
they're
not
all using the
real.
same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know. I thought, oh, it's real orchestras, but it's yeah.
Yeah,
Now I
it's
can even recognize some of the bundles when I listen to some scores from some series, TV series. Or that's quite funny. So yeah, I could
yeah,
play a lot with this stuff the whole year, and still am learning a lot about orchestras, how the ranges are, how you put them, and it's really interesting for me. It's like a new
it's
new
taking you
thing.
into new territory. I think it's,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
as a musician,
I
you're
love it.
evolving further. It's taking you into new territory,
Yeah,
and I have a feeling it's ultimately going to inspire what you do as like a, techno producer
yeah, yeah, yeah.
with the beat
I'm
driven stuff.
so
So
inspired, but yeah, I'm always inspired. I have to say, I'm lucky that I didn't have this breakdown of inspiration that of course a lot of colleagues did have. So that was good, still good. I mean, I have days that I don't feel like it, and I just don't do anything. But the other days, I'm just full on doing stuff. Only I haven't
is
finished yet. I created a lot, but I haven't finished a lot. Only the
um
remixes. Mm.
I think we all have that problem. Yeah. Yeah, one workaround that I found in finishing certain things that I've started that maybe like I've hit a creative wall with, is I just decide to do a collaboration. So yeah, that's kind of how like the whole Flug thing that just came out started. Like, I had all these unfinished tracks that I didn't know what to do with. I sent them to him. He's like, "Oh, dude, these are amazing." I'm like, "Okay, well, work on, do your thing on them." And then what he did inspired me to, feel good about those tracks again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then we ended up finishing it off, and now I have this sense of accomplishment that, like, you know, because sometimes if you're sitting on a lot of material that's half done, you feel like it's unfinished business, you know.
Mm.
And so that helped me move on from that material,
Yeah, yeah.
and kind of like eliminate the digital and mental clutter, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I should
So
do something like this as well, because I have so many of these things laying around, like you say, like snippets of ideas when you go
oh yeah,
through
send me
sound.
some stuff. I'll
And
help you finish.
I mean, yeah, maybe we should do that.
For
We'll
sure.
compile some stuff.
Yeah. And this is exactly how a collaboration happens spontaneously,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah, I have to say, some few of these things happen because beginning of this whole Corona thing, Steve O'Sullivan approached me with a similar thing. He started some tracks and he was doing a project with many artists, sending them pieces of a track and then
just finishing it off.
finish them off.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was
Yeah.
fun. And for me, that was sort of a start again of more chordy and listening stuff, because it's more Detroit tech now, but more the laid back, chordy, nice
Yeah.
ones with the old school sound.
Yeah.
A bit back to the old school, and it was the perfect time for it as well.
It's everything is going back to the old school right now, so it is a perfect time for it.
Except the tempo. Yeah, yeah. Okay, back to
except
the old school.
except
More up. Yeah, yeah,
except
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, you know, I catch myself saying the same thing, and then I'm thinking, well, you know, sometimes you hear some of that old techno, and some of it is quite fast.
Mm,
Like if you watched old
yeah,
Love Parade videos of Mark Spoon or Sven, um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
People like Paul Van Dyke and stuff playing, and they're playing, man, so fast, and it's hard to believe music was that fast and
But
is that fast
it's going
again.
back
You
there,
know,
man. What I see
it's going back
online,
there.
indeed. Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this project. On behalf of
yeah.
Kazuya, I
Thanks
thank
for
you.
asking me. I
Kazuya
mean,
is,
it was
yeah,
one of my favorite ones that year. It was really, really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. We're both really happy that all the artists involved, like, you know, felt the same connection to the material that we did, and
Yeah,
ultimately the project is out now, and everybody
yeah.
can check, you know, all the different, you know, versions and Kazuya's original album. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Steve,
I hope
and keep in
to meet
touch.
Kazuya one of these days as well, and hear a performance of his. Would love to
I'll
hear
make
one.
sure that happens before the end of the
Yeah.
year. How about that?
Yeah, I'll keep you to that.
Awesome. All
All
right,
right,
Steve.
man. Hope to see you
Thanks, man.
soon. Ciao.
Likewise. Take care. Bye, everyone.